Welcome back to Logically Speaking Sports Podcast, brought to you by the Daily Beacon. This week we'll be talking about the divisional games that happened and then previewing the conference championship games in the NFL playoffs. Adam, you can go ahead and kick it off with a recap.
Yeah, so recapping divisional round games. We're going to kick it off with the Eagles and the Saints. It was a close game. I don't know if everyone was expecting that. After the 48-7 rout earlier in the season, I personally didn't see that happening again. That's not a score you see in the playoffs. It's just playoff football is different, especially with two teams like this. I thought going into the game, one of the biggest things for the Eagles where they had to control time of possession, and they really didn't. And I think especially in the second half, that was one of the biggest things. The Saints had like a 11-minute drive. That's basically an entire quarter that they held the ball. That came with like 4 different offensive penalties that they overcame on that one drive. Time of possession was 37, almost 38 minutes for the Saints, 22 for the Eagles. So it's definitely a big swing there that I think the Eagles had to have in order to win this game. The stats overall didn't really tell the whole story of the game. The total yards weren't that close, 420 to 250. The penalties were, I think, what really killed the Saints in some of the game, just because 11 for 84 yards, that's tough. The offensive line struggled mightily in a few key situations, which they overcame, especially on that big drive, like I said. Yeah,
I know. I'm in agreement with you. I think the Saints overcame a lot of adversity in this game, and I know it's probably a lot different now, and a different mood for us if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't drop that last pass. Not necessarily. I'm not saying the Eagles would win. I think that Saints defense was playing a really good game, especially they clamped down in the second quarter onwards. I mean, obviously Philadelphia didn't score any points from then on out. I do think this is a huge game for Michael Thomas. I think he's kind of solidified himself as a official top 5 receiver in my opinion in the league. I definitely think he's deadly in any situation you put him in. In games like that where your offense is kind of struggling in the beginning and nothing's really going your way, and he stepped up with 12 catches for 171 yards and a touchdown. That's huge. I think overall, like you said, the Saints overcame a lot of self-induced penalties. I know Andreas Pete came out and said that he had a broken hand or something like that.
Yeah, he has fractures in his hand.
And which would explain why he performed pretty poorly throughout the entire game. Had a lot of holding calls. After I saw that, it made a lot more sense. Yeah. I don't know entirely why he played that. Because you gotta think how important a hand is for offensive linemen. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, still credit to him. I mean, he had some bad penalties. I think overall he didn't cost the Saints the game, obviously.
Yeah, well, the thing was he was playing interior lineman against Fletcher Cox. I think Fletcher Cox does a lot of what he did to any guard in the league, but especially when he is up against Pete, who's a little. He hasn't faced guys like Fletcher Cox that much, especially in that division. If you look at it, Gerald McCoy is probably the closest comparison that he's played a lot. I think that did play a role.
Yeah, just to finish up, I was genuinely impressed by the Eagles for a lot of the game. I think their defense has caught a lot of fire this season, and holding the Saints to 20 points, even in playoff football, is nothing to disregard.
Yeah,
they've clamped down these last 2 weeks, and I feel bad that I'm personally glad the Saints won. I picked them to win. I like a bunch of Saints players, but I do feel kind of bad for the Eagles because I like a bunch of their players, and they fought really hard. And I do feel bad that their season came down to one dropped pass and an unfortunate interception. Yeah. But I think again, I'm really impressed with what Doug Peterson did overall in these playoffs and how they overcame a bunch this season. The future for them is really interesting, and just seeing what happens with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. I know it's likely Nick Foles isn't on the team next year, and probably a starting quarterback for a team next year. It'll be interesting if he kind of keeps up the momentum he's had from this postseason and these last couple of games or not. But that's left to be seen.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. It was a really impressive win by the Saints. This was one of those kind of wins that playoff teams or that Super Bowl contenders need, where their offense didn't show up for most of the game, that their defense really had to win. I know obviously the Superdome is a big advantage. No matter where you go, it's almost like the Arrowhead Stadium for the Chiefs. It's a big deal to have there. Crowd noise is a big factor. It was kind of interesting watching how the Eagles struck first. It was like, all right, okay, they're here for a fight, because we all, like you said, it was a rematch of what happened week 11, I think, and they, absolutely destroyed the Eagles. That game wasn't close. Obviously Wentz started that game, not Foles, but it was interesting to see how the Eagles came out and played, and I thought for Foles in the first quarter, I mean, they were up 14-0, and then he threw an interception in Saints territory, and they were driving, and that was almost like their foot on the throat. Obviously, Saints are a whole different kind of offense where they can score, put up 21 at any point in time.
Yeah.
But their foot was really on their throats, and then obviously Marshawn Lattimore got a turnover, and then that's when the whole thing flipped where they didn't score for the next 3 quarters. Honestly, they play the Rams next week. I know it's a little concerning to see their offense and how it's kind of strong. Obviously, you said 400 yards of total offense. Obviously, the stats don't tell the whole story and everything. And it makes sense. It's just kind of struggling. I saw a stat where it said after week 11, the win we all put up 48, they've only averaging like 16 points a game. Obviously, it's a little fluctuation, but I think it's kind of concerning. I don't think it'll be a big deal next week because they're obviously going to put up points because the Rams can put up points too. And I think the Rams defense is close to talent level as the Eagles. I think if the Eagles had their secondary, which was kind of like their biggest problem all year, and I just think that was kind of what held them at the end. I think also the biggest problem for me with the Eagles is why I don't think they won this game, because this game obviously was close, and obviously the drop ball by Alshon was Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is who they're throwing the ball to, and him getting 12 catches is unacceptable.
Well, the thing is to slow down Michael Thomas, you have to play his game, which sounds stupid, but you have to play physical with him. They didn't do that at all. Avonte Maddox was playing 8 to 10 yards off of him almost every single play. If you give him that space, he's going to run routes all over you. The quick slants, breeze throws, stuff like that, that's their entire playbook for most of the game. To pick up yards, to milk the clock, stuff like that. Another thing that I find interesting is the start of that game, the first play, Brees throws the interception, Ginn was wide open. If he makes that throw, that game is completely different from the beginning. That's a 7-0 start for the Saints in the Superdome. That is a completely different start to the game. Underthrows him. That ends up, being Eagles 14-0 basically, and them getting the ball after halftime, which didn't really matter, but regardless. So moving into the Cowboys and the Rams. This was a really good game to watch. I thought both of these teams played really well. I think the Cowboys proved that they deserve to be there. They played a really good game. I know their defense, gave up 30. Their pass defense, which is what a lot of people had a problem with for a lot of the season, was fantastic. Like holding Goff to 186, through the air. That's something to be, pretty proud of. But the downfall came with the rushing and the fact that C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley both put up, triple digit, yards. That's not going to win you a game. 273 yards on the ground is going to win you a game if you're the Rams, especially. So the Rams came out on top 30-22. I thought both teams played really well. I thought one of the things that, was a little weird was the fact that Zeke struggled so bad against the Rams' rush defense that hadn't been great all season. So yeah, that was kind of odd. And the fact that Gallup kind of outplayed Amari Cooper for most of this game and made 2 absolutely huge catches that kept Dallas in the game. I thought Dak played really well overall. And so, yeah, I think it was a great game that really came down to the fourth quarter, and Dallas had to make the plays, and their offense just felt a little too conservative, especially down the stretch, which is a reason a lot of their fans want, change, especially with the offensive coordinator, but that doesn't seem like it's happening. Reports already coming out that there's no changes being made. But, yeah, overall, good game.
Yeah, I'm very impressed with the Dallas Cowboys' core of youth talent right now. I think... And I was really hard on the Cowboys for basically most of the year, but I think with the emergence of Amari Cooper in that offense, and like you said, Michael Gallup stepped up in a huge way in this game. It was really nice to see. As I personally, I think Dak proved that he is a franchise quarterback right now. But like I said, it was really strange to see Ezekiel Elliott struggle the way he did, especially against the Rams. And the Rams have a lot of talent on the defensive line, but I think we all agree they've underwhelmed on defense a lot this year. So if I would have picked their rushing game to be a more success in their passing game, which was flipped. But yeah, I honestly was a bit underwhelmed by the Rams. I know they put up 30 points, but I mean, it wasn't the performance I really thought I'd see from them. And like I said, Dallas's defense stepped up in a big way, and I was impressed with their defensive backs and their secondary overall. It was weird to see the Rams kind of look frustrated at times and not be able to move the ball as well as you're kind of used to them seeing them. But I think overall I was really impressed with Dallas, and I think the future is bright for them. I do think that still, if they want to take that next step and become one of the NFL's premier teams, I do think a coaching change has to be made. Scott Linehan isn't the answer OC. He's really inconsistent with calling plays. I think he's kind of in vain what Matt LaFleur was with the Titans this past year. As I know all too well that like some games, it's like the Patriots game where you come out and like throw up like 30 points and like have no trouble moving the ball, and then it's like against Buffalo when you have a hard time putting up 10 points in the entire game. I just don't think Linehan's the answer, nor do I think Garrett is a good head coach for them. It's going to be interesting to see what Jerry Jones does in the offseason. I know there's a bunch of rumors with the Cowboys alum wanting a change of coach. And I don't know, and I know Jerry Jones loves Jason Garrett, and I think he really just wants a yes man, but I think if he wants to take that next step forward into being an elite team, a coaching change has to be made. It's going to be interesting what they do in the draft as well, but I think the future is bright for Dallas regardless of what happens. I just think if they want to take that next step, they have to make some kind of coaching change.
Yeah, I think also one of the things with Scott Linehan is the fact I don't think he trusts Dak quite enough as he should. Especially going down the stretch, Dak can throw the ball down the field. Prove that in this game especially. The throws he made down the field kept them in the game, if you watched it. Also, one of the keys to this game, 3rd down, 1 for 10 for the Cowboys. That's tough. But that was also due to the fact that Zeke wasn't getting very much on 1st or 2nd down. I saw a couple drives they would come out 1st down, throw the ball down the field. It may be incomplete, and then run it with Zeke on 2nd down, and he'd get a yard, and so that's an automatic 3rd and 9. It just, the play calling, the scripting wasn't quite there for me, and so I think the Rams being 5 for 11 on 3rd down, that's about 50%. That's pretty solid, especially in comparison to 1 for 10.
Yeah, I agree. Dallas they played a good game, as both of you said. I've not been such a Dak fan, and he definitely impressed me in this game. I think with Zeke only having maybe two yards a carry, I think obviously the Rams made a point of emphasis to shut it down. Sue had a really good game, which has kind of been the signing this year, but it's just like that it really didn't pan out. I think it's more of like the big name than anything else, and I don't know if that was just because he was just kind of because everybody knew this was a playoff team. I think it was you always have those in the beginning of the season, the teams that are just going to make the playoffs who kind of just try not to get too many injuries so they can get to the playoffs and then really just kick it up a notch. Like most teams, it's almost like it kind of reminds me of an NBA type team where they kind of just wait, make sure nobody gets hurt and then just really let it go. And I think that's what kind of I saw in this game. Obviously, Rams offense underperformed a little bit, but I think that's a testament to the Cowboys defense and as you said, their young core and how good they've been playing this season, which has kind of led them to the playoffs. Obviously, Amari Cooper traded was a big deal, and Dak being able to get him the ball as much as possible. I think that Talib, he covered Cooper for most of the game. I think that would be the one thing, as we talk about conference championships, is something to look forward to. It would be concerning for me or for you, I guess, Adam, and for all Saints fans in general, as him covering Michael Thomas. Obviously, you have Ted Ginn and you have Trey Norwood, which, are good players, and I think Breeze will find a way to get them the ball. But since, as you saw, Michael Thomas destroy the Eagles, I think the Rams are going to look at that, and Wade Phillips is going to say, hey, he tore us up. He tore the Eagles up. Let's not let that happen. And I think Talib is going to do obviously better than Marcus Peters.
It's hard to do worse. Yeah.
You talk trash to Sean Payton and not good things happen. I've definitely never seen good things about it.
Yeah.
But I think what you said about Garrett maybe getting fired or maybe getting replaced as a head coach, I just don't know. I saw something where they said, who would you replace him with? He's
especially now.
Obviously now, but just in general, you go look at the Kaiser, just new. Cliff Kingsbury got a job. He got fired from Texas Tech. I'm a big fan. I think he's really good, offensive play caller. But I just don't know who you replace that's going to be better than him. Obviously, he's in that kind of middle tier of coaches where he's not like Andy Reid, Belichick, Sean McVay, those kind of guys. But I think he's a guy as Colin said, he's going to get you division titles. He's going to get you winning seasons, and I think he's going to get you to. I think he can get you to conference championships, and I don't think you can put the whole blame on Garrett. I think that's a defensive problem that you have to look at because you knew that the Rams had Gurley and C.J. Anderson, and giving up more than 200 yards rushing is a problem.
Yeah, it's a scheming problem.
Obviously, Goff didn't have a great day, but he didn't have to. Yeah. If you give 40 carries to both those dudes, that's a big problem, and so I just don't know all you can blame on him, and I think next year will be a good test because I know Dak is on his on his 5th year deal, part of his 5th year, his last year on his contract for an extension, I think.
Yeah, it'll be his 4th season, yeah.
And so I think that'll be good to see. I think Linehan, if he finally, like you said, gives him trust to throw the ball deep, But like I said, the only thing I haven't seen with Dak, and obviously he's a franchise guy, is him putting the team on back. Obviously, I saw it again. Obviously, there's so much he can do because obviously if Zeke isn't like helping you out, obviously, I mean, for any quarterback, that's a problem. Goff, same way with Gurley. But if he doesn't show enough, I just don't know if you can give him that much. I don't know if you can give him that kind of deal. Obviously, somebody would.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know if I just haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
And I think the Giants game before the regular season, I think kind of showed flashes of it. But then again, I think this next year we'll finally, hopefully, Linehan will feel comfortable about it. And hopefully, if Linehan doesn't work out, then hopefully he gets fired because he should.
Yeah. Well, the thing is the thing with like putting his team on the back and stuff like that. I think the only thing that plays, devil's advocate to that, mind view, like that point of emphasis, is the fact that the Rams ran the ball and controlled the time of possession.
There's not a whole lot he can do.
Yeah, he can only have the ball for so long. He only had the ball for so long to be able to take over the game. But yeah, I agree. So moving on, and also one other thing, the Rams comparison to like an NBA team, I like that. It reminds me of like what the Spurs did, especially with their guys and Popovich. That was a really good comparison. Colts and Chiefs, next up. This one was it was a rough one, especially for Colts fans. The score, it was an 18-point difference, but honestly didn't even feel that close. Felt kind of like the Saints and Eagles game from the first time. It was just a lot of dominance from Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. I was really impressed by their defense. Went out there and pressured Luck, which I missed during the regular season a lot because if you look at their linebackers and D-line, it's built to rush the passer. And basically all you saw this year was Chris Jones getting sacks. But you didn't hear a lot from Houston. You didn't hear a lot from Ford, which I think D Ford is very underrated, especially as a pass rusher.
I agree.
He's a huge guy on their defense, and if he's playing like he played against the Colts, that's a scary defense, regardless of how their secondary plays, because of how fast that quarterback has to get the ball out of their hand, which, leading into this next week's game, Brady gets the ball out of his hand really quick. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, so the Chiefs took this one 31-13. Luck struggled for most of the game. I know his stats don't look terrible, but honestly, it was a little bit of garbage time there in the fourth. Marlon Mack struggled, only had 9 carries, which is, not the recipe for success against the Chiefs. You need time of possession. You need to be able to run the ball, and a lot of people expected Mack to be able to do that. I heard multiple people say that he was the key to the game for the Colts. That did not work out, especially in terms of game flow. Damian Williams put up a heck of a game comparatively. T.Y. went out and played well, but overall, it was just, basically to me, it showed who is the better team. I think Luck had a great season. I think the Colts outperformed a lot of their, projections and stuff, but I think they were overall a better, overall team playing against bad teams rather than playing against good teams. They beat up on a lot of, mediocre-ish teams. And then, playing the Jags twice a year and stuff like that. Luck had huge games against them, stuff like that. But overall, showed that the Chiefs are for real this year, regardless of what people think of their defense. They went out and showed that they can play a good game. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to echo what you said, I do think that Kansas City defense, especially mainly the defensive line, like you said, put up a huge game. I think that as a whole, their defensive unit still has a lot of holes, but this was This is a kind of statement game they needed to going into the conference championship that I think will give them a lot of confidence going forward. I still think there's a bunch of holes they need to plug, especially in this draft and hopefully in the offseason for them to really take another step forward. Their offense is dominant, and that's going to win you a bunch of games, but they're going to need defensive playmakers that can step up and if the offense kind of gets schemed well against. Overall, I think the Colts had a really impressive season. Like you said, they started off pretty abysmal.
1-5, yeah.
Yeah, and not a lot of teams can really bounce back from that. So credit to them for finishing out strong and making the playoffs and even beating the Texans in a pretty dominant fashion. But I think, like you said, I think this is a testament to Andy Reid's offense when it works. Because we're used to Pat Mahomes throwing 4 or 3 touchdowns a game. In this game, he didn't even throw for one. You had Damian Williams do it. He threw for a lot of yards and he played really well. It's a testament that Andy Reid you don't have to rely on Patrick Mahomes every game. That the running game can take off and perform really well. And I think that's huge for them, especially going forward into next week against the Patriots. But yeah, overall, I think the Colts, they just didn't play well. There's not much more to say. Kansas City played a solid team game, and I think that was important for them going forward. But I mean, besides that, I think the Colts they didn't play up to par. I think their future's bright, just like Dallas. But I think just this was a sign that like you said, Kansas City is a better team right now, and they have more aspirations than the Colts did. So I think this was more of a statement game for anything.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think I knew something was wrong with this game. I think some people are giving the Colts a chance because of the way their offensive line and defensive line honestly played better than the Chiefs had all year, and the Colts offensive line, which people thought that was going to be, you said with them and Mac was going to be the difference maker in this game, they got manhandled. And obviously it shows by the 9 carries, so obviously they had to give it. Obviously it went down by, 3 touchdowns, and it was just like,
yeah, they went down pretty
quick.
Oh,
boy. And
yeah.
So they had to start throwing the ball, which is when we get to the next game in conference championship, that's how they're going to beat Brady. It's because you're just going to have to get a big lead, and you're just going to have your defense got to make a couple stops, get a big lead, and then obviously not some more, and you're just going to have to pass rush them and get them uncomfortable. But Damian Williams, you said, had a big game. I think that was the biggest thing for me is that they didn't have to ride Mahomes. And with this next game coming up, it's supposed to be below freezing, so obviously it's going to be hard to throw the ball with the way that Mahomes is with his. I mean, he just gunslinger.
Yeah,
but
cannon.
I think luck. I knew, like I said before, as I started, luck. I knew something was wrong when this first pass on their first drive threw it to Ebron. It just fluttered, and it just kind of didn't even make it to him. It was like a 4-yard pass for a first down. He was wide open, and I looked at Adam, and I said, "Yeah, that's not right." I said, "They're done. There's just no way because he just didn't look right." I don't know if something with the cold was bothering him or something. Obviously, something had to, and they're obviously not going to say, but something was bothering him. And then the biggest thing for me was their offensive line getting manhandled, and then the Chiefs just playing probably their best game of the season overall, team-wise. And they didn't even have, I don't think Eric Berry even played in this game.
No, he didn't.
He was out.
I don't know if he's supposed to be there next week. I doubt it.
I haven't seen any practice reports, but I also haven't heard that he is going to play.
I know he's been listed as day-to-day. Personally, I think he's doubtful to play. But I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, hopefully if they do make the Super Bowl, that I'm sure he'll probably play in that. But you never know with him. He's super injury prone. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy. Not much to talk about. I think just the Chiefs played overall really good game, and I think at the end of the day they were, you said, the better team.
Yeah,
so.
And also with the Colts going forward, I think Frank Reich was a fantastic hire. I think he proved that this year.
Better than McDaniels for sure.
No, absolutely. I think that kind of played into their hands somehow, the whole McDaniels leaving thing. And also going forward, they have over $100 million in cap space. That's going to be huge.
Yeah, look for them to get Antonio Brown or Le'Veon.
Yeah, I expect them to make a big move like that. And I think in the draft they can go. They have a lot of places to go. You can go corner. You can probably get another safety, or you can go for a tackle because clearly, the offensive line as a whole played really well this season. But when they played against really good pass rushing teams, you saw a little bit of penetration from the outside of the line, not with Quentin Nelson, not with Kelly at center, none of that. It was from the outside, making Luck step up in the pocket, which just, rushed his throws and stuff like that, which is one more reason that I think you're right with, he was having to step up and be rushed this entire game. That definitely played into the Chiefs' hands. Moving on, going to be the Chargers and the Patriots. We can run through this one pretty quick, I think.
There wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, the score was a lot closer than the game was. The Chargers put up some garbage time points with Rivers. I know watching that game, Rivers was absolutely heated. At the end of it, he was just frustrated, and I understand. He's 0-8 against Brady now, 0-9.
It's something
it's
crazy.
Not good.
Yeah, it's rough. But I get his frustration, and his offense played okay. But overall, when you're down 35-7 at halftime, neither the offense nor the defense was doing its job. I think coming into the game, we heard a lot about Bosa, Melvin Ingram, that D-line, nothing during it. Absolutely nothing. And also the fact that, their corners didn't play great. Casey Hayward didn't play great. You didn't hear a lot from their safeties either. Throughout the season, I thought Derwin James played great, and they used him really well. You didn't hear his name as much in this game, and I think that's one of the things that the Patriots do well, and everyone knows it, is if you have a key player or players on a certain side of the ball, they're going to focus on them and take them out of the game. And so when they're on offense, they're going to focus, okay, they have Bosa on this side. We might, chip block with a tight end or the halfback on that side more. And they played Derwin James in the box, so let's try to take it downfield a little bit with the faster guys or throw some up for the bigger guys and stuff like that. So overall, Brady did his thing as usual. I know his stats aren't super flashy, but he was super, conservative with the game, and that's what he had to do, and they still put up 41. But he was consistent, 34 for 44 for 343 and a touchdown. That's going to win you a game, especially when you're the Patriots, and especially when, they ran the ball fantastic against the Chargers defense that a lot of people expected to be tough on the run. That just didn't happen, and Julian Edelman turned into playoff Edelman again and played out of his mind. So, yeah, I this is one, there's not a lot of, analysts, to be had for it, but that's about it.
I mean, yeah, it was a pretty abysmal game for the Chargers overall. The only thing I really want to discuss is how Sonny Michel absolutely dominated this game. I think he proved, much like how I mentioned Michael Thomas having kind of a prove-it game. For me, this was a prove-it game for Sonny Michel, which I think even if they lose next week, which we'll get into in a minute, I think this is huge for him going forward. It's huge for me because I have him fantasy in a keeper league, so I'm super excited about it. But no, I think it was a huge game for him. I think this proved that we all kind of doubted the Patriots a little bit. I know personally I picked the Chargers because I was really impressed with how they performed against Baltimore in their defense, and I was mainly impressed by their defense going up against Lamar Jackson. So I thought the Chargers leagues put up a better fight. I thought it was going to be close no matter what. But I mean, this proved that the Chargers might just I don't know what the issue is. I think it comes down mainly that the Patriots are one of the best game planning teams in the entire league, if not the best. They, like you said, they find a way to take out your best players and force you to kind of force other players to step up, which in this case no one on LA could. But yeah, just overall, I came away with this game more impressed with the Patriots more than anything. I already knew they were good, but this kind of proved it to me that even when they're kind of having a quote-unquote down year, when they're not dominating as much as we're used to, that they're still able to come into playoffs and perform the way we're used to them being, which makes next week's game a whole lot more interesting, and it's going to be a lot harder to decide. But yeah, the Chargers played bad, and Patriots played really well. That's about it.
Yeah, I think this game was a testament to how great of a coach Belichick is, as you both said. They find ways to scheme your best players on both sides of the ball to just take them out of the game. I think the Chargers last week when they played the Ravens, I think they implemented the 7 DB thing so they could have a bunch of fast guys who, obviously their DBs are not like some who they're willing to hit. They're willing to put you on the ground, and I think Belichick knew that, and let's be honest, Gus Bradley's their defensive coordinator. I don't think he was going to change. He's like, all right, well, that worked last week. Let's try it again. And I think Belichick was like, all right, if you're going to put 7 DBs, we'll run it down your throat. And that's what happened. As you saw, 24 carries, almost 100, I think, 32 yards for Michelle. And I was just like, it was pretty hard to watch. And I think you said Rivers was frustrated throughout the game. Was like, yeah, because you got beat by the better quarterback. I know you know what it's like to be beat by someone. Honestly, you can get mad at someone who's worse than you. It's just maybe had a bad game or whatever. You got beat by someone who's legitimately better than you.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest thing for me to see that game. And the Chargers, and it's not and you can't put, obviously you put the blame on the defense, but the defense got stops in the first half. They got some stops. And if you know that your defense isn't doing a very good job in the first half of the game and you're having to wait to make adjustments, Rivers, this is what you get paid to do. You had to put the team on your back, and he didn't do it. Their offense looked abysmal. I get it, Gordon's a part of your offense, but it was bad. And people have talked trash about the Patriots defense. Talk trash in quotations, obviously. And people was like, well, this is gonna be the game. The Patriots finally go down. This is one on the. This wasn't having it. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's a testament to how good Belichick is of a coach. Obviously, Brady, and this is probably the best game Brady's played. He looked he was making throws. There's one throw he made. I think it was maybe to Edelman or Hogan, and it was fingertips lengths away from the DB, and he just threw it in like a dot. And I just said, oh boy. I said, it was in the second quarter. I was like, yep, y'all are done. I said because. You can only see throws like that so many times, and only great quarterbacks make those throws, and Brady is one of those guys, and it's why he's special. And when we get to the conference championship game, it's Chiefs are in for one again, because no matter how cold it's going to be, he'll find a way to win this game, and Belichick will find a way to scheme you out. So.
Yeah, so moving in, conference championships, Rams visiting the Superdome and the Saints. Jared, I'll let you kick this one off.
All right, so Saints obviously had a really, really good season this year. Rams had a really good season, and I think we all thought the Rams kind of underperformed a lot on defense anyways, and they kind of started to slack off towards the end of the season, which happens, like we talked about. Obviously at the Superdome, which it's already hard enough to beat the Saints, so so trying to do it at home, on the road for the Rams is going to be an extremely difficult task. Like I said before earlier about the divisional matchup, I think if Michael Thomas is shadowed by Talib, I think it's going to make it harder for him, but I think this is where Sean Payton makes his money, and I think Drew Brees is going to find a way. They're going to find a way to scheme him to get him open because he's their best playmaker besides Kamara. And I think if they do find a way to stop Thomas, they're going to have to pick one. It's either going to be Thomas or Kamara, and I think if they try to stop Thomas, they really put all their effort into something. Kamara's going to have a big game, and I think the Saints win this game, in my opinion. I think the Rams will keep it really close. I think it's going to be one of those things where Lutz has to probably kick a field goal or the defense is going to have to get a stop, which the way they played last week, obviously Foles magic. I mean, he's deadly in the playoffs, and I think that's kind of a big deal, and I thought that was impressive. That was impressive to me in the game. And I think at the end of the day, corners, this one's really tough for me because it's really close. And I think the next game we're going to talk about is really close too, and it's almost really a coin flip. But, I mean, you have the advantage of being in the dome, crowd, and let's be honest, I mean, for me, Brees is going to be, at the end of the day, I say Kamara and Michael Thomas are going to be the biggest difference makers. It's going to be Brees. And Brees always this is kind of one of his games where he's probably going to have to take over, and I think he's someone I would want.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, my thing with this one is the fact that last week the Rams held Zeke down, a little over 2 yards a carry. That's all he got. I think Ingram and Kamara are going to be really important because even with the Saints and their known, high-flying offense, moving the ball, quickly, stuff like that, the drive against the Eagles was
impressive.
It was a grinding drive, and I think those kind of drives are the ones that could win them this game in a way that nobody really expects. Just because that we expect this one to be high scoring as well. Well, one of those drives takes out a whole quarter for either team to score. So that's one of the things that'll be interesting to me to watch. If Sue and Donald can get penetration like they did against the Cowboys, then it's going to make a big difference. But I personally like the Saints O-line more than I like the Cowboys O-line as of right now. Just because they have the two tackles that were Ramczyk he was a Pro Bowler last year as a rookie. Armstead was a Pro Bowler this year. Unger, been a Pro Bowler. He's one of the most consistent centers in the game. Stuff like that. But I think this one is going to be one of those games where it's going to be, like you said, can Brees, do what he does and stuff like that. And I've seen a lot of people, doubting his arm and stuff like that and the arm talent and stuff. But I don't really see where that's a problem. I know, like last week he underthrew that ball again. It's one throw. And I know, that may make the difference in this game. But, you can't tell me that Goff can't make one of those throws too. So I think, overall, Thomas is going to play a big part for the Saints offense as well and how they cover him. They've said that Peters, thank the Lord for the Rams, won't, shadow him again, since Talib is back.
I hope not. They ain't gonna stand a chance.
Yeah, so I think it'll be a combination of both of them. I don't think Talib will shadow him the entire time, just because I think that it may not even be Peters sometimes on Thomas. It could be one of the safeties if it's in a certain play call, stuff like that, certain time of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think one of the keys for the Saints as well on offense, can another guy step up and catch the ball other than Kamara and Thomas? Because if they're locking down Thomas, you probably can't lock down Thomas and Kamara. But if they lock down Thomas, you need another receiver or a tight end to be a vertical threat and, get them away from Kamara and Ingram so they can't stack the box and stop the run as well, because that's going to be an issue for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I think I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, it's down. The biggest match with this game is gonna be Talib and Thomas, or whoever lines up against Thomas at every snap. I think for me, what kind of sets the edge with the Saints is that the Rams have no real proven linebackers, and I think when the screen game and running backs are so involved in the passing game like they are for the Saints, I think you need good linebackers. So I actually Kamara honestly have probably a big game catching more than running. I think Ingram's gonna take more of the more of the carries anyway, and I think Kamara's gonna be more involved in passing downs and just more so. I think Kamara's a more deadly weapon in terms of this game. Overall, I mean, I like the Saints better at home anyway. I think it's gonna be a close game no matter what, but I think, like you said, it's also gonna come down to time of possession. I don't think the Saints will have another crazy 11-minute long drive like they did. It's just it's one of those rare things that's only going to happen every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's demoralizing.
If probably ever again. But I mean, which credit to the Saints. I mean, that's just their offense is it's just so good and it's so dominant right now. And I think again that was huge. But right now, I just think I like the Saints better at home. I think they're just a more proven team, and I like the better quarterback. And I don't think it's a question. Breeze is a way better quarterback than Goff. Goff puts up good numbers, but I think if that's all down to the system he's in under McVay. And I think McVay's gonna have a great offensive coaching game. I just think again it's gonna be high. I think it's gonna be high scoring, but I think overall the Saints will probably edge him in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think another thing to look at is the fact that last game when these two teams played, they had Cooper Kupp. And he had a good game against the Saints. He caught the touchdown that kept them in the game there in the fourth quarter. That was like a 45-yard touchdown down the sideline. I remember it very vividly. But without him, their offenses looked a little different. It should be interesting to see how they play this game, especially with McVay. But, yeah, I'm glad you guys both have some confidence in the Saints. I have confidence, but I will pick the Saints, but I don't feel great about it. You said, it's a toss-up.
I'm gonna be really intrigued by what New Orleans corners do and how, I know Marshall Lattimore is obviously a lockdown corner. But
PJ Williams is gonna be. I think the impact on defense-wise. I think because I think Brandon Cooks and it's gonna be Robert Woods too. So it's gonna be difficult. Yeah. I think for them to, like you said, it's probably gonna be high scoring. But I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up looking like the game last week. It could.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying.
21. It could. 27, 20. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm like, all right. I mean, no matter what's going to happen, it's going to be close. And I think, like I said, the only thing that concerns me about the Saints is their drop-off production in offense, which, let's be honest, once you get through week to 11, they were 11-1, 10-1. It's just we're already making the playoffs. I mean, and the division for the NFC South was already just falling off a cliff. I mean, the Panthers were the only thing that was close, and then once Cam Newton got his shoulder pretty much went out on him. Everybody fell off a cliff. So it was there's no point in really, trying to.
Yeah, I think the secondary for the Saints will be important just because the matchups. It'll be interesting to see where Lattimore goes. I think he fits more covering Robert Woods than the other two guys do. Eli Apple has played really good. He played great last week against the Eagles. So I'm interested to see him or PJ Williams on Brandon Cooks. And that could be, a big matchup to watch.
Dangerous.
Yeah. So moving in to the Patriots and the Chiefs, another game that I personally think is a toss-up. Miller, I'll let you kick this one.
Yeah, I think this year just has one of the chances to be one of the best conference championship games we've ever seen. I do think the Chiefs are going to win this game. I just think it mainly comes down to how dangerous Pat Mahomes is. I know he had a quiet week last week, a bunch of passing yards, but I think this will be another week where, I think the Patriots and Chiefs it was incredibly close, and it came down to the last possession. I think it's gonna be close. I know everyone's kind of heavy favorites on the Chiefs. And I know I picked them, but I don't think you need to count the Patriots out. I think everyone did that last week, and it turned out to be the completely wrong decision.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see if the Chiefs' defensive line steps up like they did last week, and if I think they do, it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be a little bit more, at least a little more tolerable. I think they need to pressure Brady. I think that's always been the game. That's always been the way to beat the Patriots. If you pressure Brady and make him force him to make bad throws, it's obviously gonna be a little bit easier to play against him. I don't think Sonny Michel's gonna have another huge game like he did last week. I just think overall they're gonna make sure to game plan that, especially after he put up what he did last week, like I just mentioned. But overall, I think the Chiefs I think they're just gonna be. They edge them out on offense a little bit. I think it's gonna be a battle of offense. I don't think defense is really gonna be prevalent in this game. I think the Rams and Saints have a better chance of being low scoring in this game. I just don't like either defense all that much. It's just gonna be interesting to see who steps up in this game and who doesn't.
Yeah, obviously this one is gonna be a toss up for me. I like Mahomes. His intangibles are something honestly we've never seen before. I mean, he's got arm talent that obviously we've never seen before. He makes throws like a baseball player does, which obviously for Adam and me, we're just like, well, that's no big deal. It's kind of, we see those kind of throws all the time, especially not even playing the game, but just watching baseball. You see that's a shortstop type throw, and everybody's just like, oh my god. But it's like, yeah, well, for the football, obviously it's different, and how much zip he puts on it, it's obviously a big deal, and I think that's what's gonna be the biggest difference maker for me. I think Damian Williams is gonna have. I think he'll have a way with the Patriots defense, but I think they're gonna have to put it on Mahomes to win this game. Unlike last week, not having Kareem Hunt, obviously for the reasons he's not on their team anymore, I think is gonna hurt them. I think that's what's gonna hurt them this game. Obviously, that sounds like I'm choosing the Patriots, which I am, because as much as people want to like discount them, especially last week, I don't bet against Brady. That's not someone I would put my money on. I think the defense it was interesting. The Chiefs, I think you said they had confidence. They should have confidence going into this game. And I think this the way that like temperature and the way how it's supposed to be really snowy, it's supposed to be like below freezing. This seems like it should be a defensive type game almost, but with the way their offenses are, and the way how bad their defense has been, should be an offensive shootout. And I think at the end of the day, Mahomes is gonna put his team on his back. Belichick's gonna obviously set up a game plan to where they attack the Chiefs' weakness, which is honestly for me it's corners and that's pretty much secondary problem has kind of been thing, and that's why I think the Eric Berry thing not playing is a big deal for me. And I just at the end of the day, if I had to pick, I don't bet against Brady. So I would pick the Patriots, but I think it's a toss up for sure.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a great game as well. I'm going to take the Patriots as well, but I think it's going to be a great game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs pull it out. But I'm not going to doubt Brady, and I'm not going to doubt the fact that also I think the weather and stuff plays well to the Patriots. I know Kansas City is used to the cold weather, but New England is used to those snowy games, and especially when it comes to Brady. Brady is used to those snowy games, those really cold games more than Mahomes is. And overall, I think one of the biggest factors that comes into this is Mahomes turning the ball over. And if he does that a couple times, the Patriots have this in the bag to me. And I think because with the Chiefs offense, even though they're so high flying, they're very quick, they're built on speed and they're built on moving the ball down the field really quick so your defense doesn't have time to make adjustments. The Patriots will make those adjustments. They will make sure that those adjustments are made no matter how fast you're moving. And so I think that will slow Kansas City down, but not in a way that would help Kansas City, but it'll hurt them and they'll, turn the ball over, more punts, stuff like that, especially with the weather, like y'all said. So I'm going to take the Patriots in a close one, but I overall like the quarterback just because it is Brady in the playoffs in the cold. Like the running back more as well. And, I'll give the edge to Tyreek Hill over Edelman as, a number one. But I also like the matchups that Edelman and those other receivers and Gronk are playing more than I like Hill and Kelsey and stuff like that more than their matchups that they have to play.
Yeah, Hill struggled down the stretch. He had a couple big drops. Obviously, in the regular season, it's not a big deal, but obviously he was hurt against that Ravens game. But, it was still, I think, kind of concerning. But I think, and the snow is obviously going to play a big deal in this one. But, who knows? It's definitely a toss-up. So.
Yeah. Should be a great weekend of games, though.
I agree.
And thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Next week we'll be talking about Super Bowl games and hopefully some college basketball. Thanks for listening.